I think of all the emotions that I have struggled with, anger has been, I'd say, the biggest one for me. I think the main reason is because I had this perspective that anger was this bomb, like this thing that would build up, and then when it exploded, it would destroy everything around it. Or that it was like, when people became angry, is because they were, like this werewolf under the moonlight, and then they would just completely lose control and just create a lot of damage, and then they would just not, like the next day, they would just not remember or know the damage that they did when they were in this werewolf state, right? So because of that, I felt like I never wanted to hurt people around me, or I never wanted to hurt other people by feeling angry and becoming anger. I think, like, when I think of anger, the thing that comes to my mind is like fire, like this, like, really powerful, scary, destructive force that can destroy a lot. It can, like, burn everything down, and it can damage everything around it. And there's like a sense of like fear of letting that fire burn, or letting that fire be. I feel like often, like, when I think of like me getting really angry, it starts like in my heart. Like, I can feel like my heart palpitating really fast, and then like from my stomach or from my gut, like I can feel like kind of like flames, and those flames like touch my heart, and then like they build up and grow, and then they just like are like everywhere. I think like a big thing also about anger that is really intimidating for me to like allow myself to feel it is like how the conditioning that I had, right? Like, my experience of anger growing up was that, and seeing other people being angry, was that they lost control of themselves. Like, this thing of like, you lose control, like the werewolf, right? Like, you just become a werewolf, and then like you just have no control over like what happened after that. Or like the house is being burned down, and like there's so much fire everywhere that there's no amount of water, or I don't know, fire extinguisher that can like get rid of it, because the whole house is just on fire. So like I just went through life kind of like, okay, like I'm not gonna feel anger ever. I'm not gonna let myself be angry, and just kind of like just always trying to control anger, like always trying to keep it down, like always trying to make it like non-existent as much as possible. So something that I've come to realize is that there's not such thing as a bad emotion. That sometimes everything that exists, and like every emotion has a purpose, and we kind of need to make space for emotions to be healthy. If there is any emotion that you're not allowing in yourself, you're not a healthy person. Like, you're not gonna be healthy, because everything is connected, and everything has like a purpose and a reason. So for example, I think of like, the movie Inside Out. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's a really good movie, and it's for kids, but you can learn as an adult too. And it's about emotions, and how like every single emotion, like their personality, I guess, and like it's like every single emotion in the movie has like a purpose and an intention. And there's this character that I really like, and it's like it's called Anger, and this character is represents the emotion of anger. And it's kind of funny how like in some ways like he's kind of dumb, like compared to like the other characters, like he is kind of dumb. And I feel like that's kind of realistic, because like in some ways, like when we become really angry, we can become kind of dumb sometimes, because anger is like a lot of force, a lot of energy, and sometimes it doesn't really have a direction where it goes. It's just to be angry. However, if you think about like the emotion of anger compared to like the other characters, anger is like really good at making choices, you know? Like there's like one of them, I don't remember the name, but it's this one that is like kind of purple and it's like skinny. I think it's Fear. Yeah, he's Fear. And Fear is really indecisive, right? Like it's really difficult for him to make decisions, whereas anger is like it just makes a decision, you know? Even if it's a bad decision or a good decision, it just makes a decision. So even though we could think about like that ability of anger, of making choices, making decisions, like, oh, that could be bad or good, in some ways it's kind of good, because fear is so fearful, right? Like it's so afraid that oftentimes we just not make any choice, which is sometimes kind of worse. So there's like this decision making fire of anger. And also like there's this part that I think is funny, like how like the other emotions, they use anger, like when he gets angry, right? Like his head gets on fire, which I think, you know, is like, yeah, well, like anger is connected to, it's like this fire burning experience. And the other emotions use anger to like get on fire or get lit and make like a hole in the area, the little house office thing where like all the emotions are at. So it's like interesting how like the fire of anger is really useful, and it like if all the other emotions, like knowing how to use it is really useful. Whereas sometimes the anger, just like being angry for no, like, you know, for no reason, but like without a purpose, I guess, it can be kind of destructive, and kind of like, you know, purposeless. So I think like it's really like, you know, it's like just reflecting on like how like anger, like it's like this fire that can sometimes like impulse us to like make choices in our lives that are really important, that sometimes you need that anger, like you need that fuel, you need that fire to make something happen. I was watching like this movie of it's called like Snow White and the Huntsman, and it's about like, you know, like Snow White, and there's like a witch or queen, and the witch is like now a queen and she's evil and whatever. And then there's this moment of like Snow White, she's like kind of like talking to the people and talking to them how like let's go and get rid of this evil queen witch that is destroying destroying the land, is destroying everything, and destroying, you know, the sanity and the health of the land and of the people. And Snow White, you know, like she's really, really angry, and like she like lets the anger of the people and directs that anger into like going to the evil queen, and let's get rid of her, and let's like, you know, save our home and save our land. And those type of things is something that we see a lot in history of like, you know, like we have heroes, you know, when there's like, you know, like back in the day, like when independence happened in like different nations and stuff, there's always like a group of people that are oppressed, and there's like this people that are like controlling the oppressed people, and the independence of the people that are oppressed comes from the anger, right? Like it comes from this like being sick and tired, you know? And like you need this anger, like you need this fire, you need this fuel to lead a war, or to lead, you know, to go into the evil queen and like and get rid of her. And like you need that. Without that anger, nothing will change and nothing will happen. So if you see it sometimes like that, it's like sometimes not having anger in situations when you should have anger and when you should use that anger is kind of really unhealthy, you know. So what I've learned is that it's really important to, instead of like trying to never let that anger burn or never make space for that anger, like make space for the anger and see like what the anger is trying to communicate. Like what is the anger angry about? You know, what is going on? Oftentimes anger comes when we feel like there's injustice, you know, fairly so. When there's injustice, there's like a response of anger. When we feel like there's like somebody is like stepping over on our boundaries, right? Like we don't feel protected, we don't feel safe, and we need to feel safe and protected to be a healthy human being. Then there's anger. Anger comes here. Like, so anger in some ways is like a protector, just like in the Inside Out movie. Like anger is a protector, you know, and he has like this super strong energy of like whenever there's something going on and we need protect ourselves, then anger comes in to, like, you know, it's like this defender, this protector, like this bodyguard. So it's really valuable and it's really important. It has a really valuable job in our lives. Also, like, we can feel anger when we feel like, you know, the same thing of injustice, like someone or something has been taken away from us. So there's like a response of anger, you know, because there's like a feeling of like, this is unjust, this is not fair, or I deserve this, I'm worthy of X, Y, or Z, and this is not fair. There's a response of anger. Yeah, and like just like this protective aspects of ourselves that anger brings, that I think that it is really valuable and really important. Yeah, so like, you know, like making space for that feeling and like letting anger, like sit with the anger and be like, and understand like, what is this anger trying to communicate? Like, what has happened that I feel like that anger felt like it needs to jump in and like protect me? What is going on? Or what do I need that I'm not getting? Because sometimes like anger is like this, you know, protective mom that is like, no, like, you know, like I'm gonna, like, my needs need to be met, or something is not right, or this is unjust, or something's be taken away, or I need to protect like my baby, right? So like sometimes like anger shows up like that. I also think like a big reason why I used to think that this negative perspective of anger, like it was like this destructive thing, is because I related the emotion of anger with the actions that people did when they were angry. So like the emotion with the actions. So what I mean by that is, for example, somebody is angry, they feel the anger and they are so consumed by this anger and they punch somebody, like they become violent, right? So then obviously violence is not a healthy thing and it's not okay because we're breaking other people's boundaries. So I thought like, well, if they weren't angry, they wouldn't do that, right? Because there's this perspective, like the only way that anger can be expressed and used is with violence, is with destruction, is with, you know, like with all these things. And the truth is that that's like a bad way of expressing anger, you know? It's like, it's not that the anger itself is bad, it's that the way that the anger is being expressed or the way that the anger is being used is not right. Sometimes we need to use violence, right? Like sometimes violence is necessary, but a lot of times it's not. Just like, you know, like me talking about the movie of Snow White going into the Queen, like she needed to be violent to, you know, to free her people and free herself from this mess. But a lot of times in our lives, that's not the case. So oftentimes, like, we need to learn to separate that the emotion, wow, this is so loud. Okay. That the emotion is okay, but the behavior might not be. So the emotion might be okay and the behavior might not be. So the emotion of anger, feeling anger in my body is right. It's okay and it's healthy. However, punch somebody in the face because I feel angry is not okay. There might be another way. So I think like that really changed my mind into like like my perspective on anger, and how like maybe I can just change the behavior. So instead of like punching somebody in the face, I can feel this anger, see what this anger is trying to communicate. What is like, why am I angry about? Sit with that and use that anger as a fuel for something that is healthy, right? So direct the anger towards an action that would help me and help others, and that is, it's a conscious choice. It's not just like I'm just being reactive, right? Like I am responding with my anger. Oftentimes anger can make us, or no, like we believe that anger can make us reactive, right? So reactive is like I just react, like it's like out of control. Whereas if we can be conscious with the anger, make space with the anger, acknowledge the anger, and see what the anger is communicating, we can make a conscious choice and a conscious decision of what am I gonna respond with this anger? Like how am I gonna respond with this anger, or how am I gonna process this anger, how am I gonna express this anger, or what am I gonna do? What choice am I gonna make with the anger that is a healthy choice? And that, instead of reacting, is responding. Like I'm responding to life, to a situation, to a person, instead of just reacting. And of course, as a practice, and it's a really hard practice to learn, of course, because if we're never being modeled that growing up as children, then it can feel like we're like learning a new language, like we're learning something completely different that we've never seen before. And that's also like going back to like my experience of anger. A lot of it came from my home, like my childhood and my upbringing, and just seeing, you know, adults in my life that when they got angry, they just were really destructive and would say really hurtful things and would become extremely violent, and they just seemed out of control. And and then they would blame other people for their behavior, because they would say like, oh, you made me angry, you did X, Y, and Z that made me do X, Y, and Z. Whereas that's not necessarily true. Like it's always okay, the feeling is always valid, the emotion is always valid, the behavior might not be. So something that I'm learning to apply in my life is to use my anger towards positive choices and positive things, like giving purpose to the anger, just like the emotions in the movie. They were like using the anger's fire to make this hole and whatever, like using my anger as fuel for changing my life, or changing my circumstances, or changing whatever needs to be changed, or getting my needs met, or stuff like that. And in that way, it's like I'm acknowledging my emotion of anger, I'm acknowledging why I'm angry, and I'm facing it. I'm not running away from it, but instead of reacting with it, I am responding with the anger, and that anger is like the fuel that I need for that. I just think that, you know, it's being a big journey for me, like to learn to like accept anger and to let myself be angry, and to just accept that sometimes I'm angry. Like sometimes I'm angry at God, sometimes I'm angry at people, sometimes I'm angry at myself, you know. Sometimes I'm angry at my circumstances, like sometimes I'm angry for no reason. And also that has helped me see how sometimes I can project anger towards something that is not really what made me angry, you know. So I can be angry about something else, and then I can project it into whatever is vulnerable in my life, you know. Of course, I don't do that like verbally. I don't go people and like, you know, attack them or something, or like verbally shame them or verbally blame them for my anger. But like I can see like my internal dialogues of like me like being frustrated or angry or irritable towards something or someone, and I can stop myself and be like, why am I angry to this person about because they said this silly joke, like. And then when I can make space for that and see really what is behind that, I can see like, oh, I was angry about something else, like something completely unrelated to this person. It's just that I'm in this moment mentally and emotionally, I'm not really present to my anger, so I'm just like reacting to it, and my reaction is to project it into someone that has nothing to do with my anger. So, and I feel like the only way that we can really see that is and see those little like details and little things that like little cracks of our soul, of our like consciousness, is when we allow anger to be. And not just anger, any emotion, like when we allow those emotions to be and see what they're trying to communicate, the message that they're bringing to us, or what they're trying to communicate. Yeah, so I wanna motivate you, I don't know, inspire you to ask yourself, like, what are you angry about? And allow it to be. Sometimes also, like, we can rationalize ourselves and be like, oh, I'm not allowed to be angry about this because it's not logical. But the reality is that emotions are not logical ever. Like, and we're mainly emotional beings more than logical beings, I think. So, oh my God, I feel a little angry at this noise. Okay. What was I saying? Yeah, so something also that I want to share is that there is this lady, her name is, Lord Jesus, what's her name? Louise Hay. And she has this meditation that I did, that it was so powerful for me. And I'm gonna put it in the link. I'm gonna put the link in the description box, I think it's called. And it's a meditation about releasing anger. It's allowing yourself to feel angry, and it's kind of like using kind of like hypnosis. It's not gonna hypnotize you. That's not what hypnosis is about. It's not like any voodoo thing, anything like that. It's a mindfulness practice of healing and allowing. It's really powerful, but it's like a mindfulness practice. And it's this meditation when, like, she's kind of using hypnosis for you to express anger to 5 people in your life that you feel anger towards. It's really, really powerful. It's really, really healing. It's quite long. I think it's like 30 minutes, but it's so amazing, just so healing, so powerful. And it really, it's kind of like the beginning, like one-on-one on like learning how to allow yourself to be angry and to feel angry without creating damage physically in your life, but allowing your heart and allowing yourself to feel anger, and in a healthy way. So I think it's really wonderful. So I think it's a really good tool. Another thing that I think is really amazing is that how sometimes when we sit with anger and we can see, like, trying to acknowledge anger and like make space for them or for her or for him and see like what is this anger about, we can realize that sometimes what anger really is just grief, and she's just pretending to be angry, or sadness, she's pretending to be angry, or loss. And sometimes, like, some people have this perspective that I think is really valid, that anger is like a secondary emotion. So like when there's a really heavy emotion that I feel like I'm not allowed to express it, then sometimes anger shows up to express it or to defend it, you know, like sadness or grief or loss, or like when we don't feel like allowed or safe enough to express sadness or to express fear or to express all those other emotions that we as a society believe they're weak, or like you're like weak if you have that emotion, or you're vulnerable and we don't want to be vulnerable. Anger sometimes can show up to protect that or to express that in a way, because we feel like safer in anger. Like there's like an aspect of like I don't have to be so vulnerable when I'm angry, versus like if I'm sad or I'm hurt or I'm fearful, there's a lot of vulnerability in that. Or if I need to express a need, there's a lot of vulnerability in needing from other people. So the only way that I feel like we can acknowledge that and see that, and that can really show up, is that if we acknowledge anger and see what is the anger about. Sometimes the anger is like, oh, I'm not really anger, I'm sadness. Or I'm not really anger, I am hurt. Or I'm not really angry, I'm lost. So I hope that make you reflect on anger. And yeah, that's a good question. What are you angry about? what are you angry about right now? Or if you're not angry right now, what have you been angry about that you have not allowed yourself to be angry about? Yeah, and just start from there. Okay, that's it. Have a good day. Bye.